seems to be enough room, is there? So put these over here. Well, greetings, everyone. Feast of Tabernacles. It's a fun time, isn't it? And to be able to unplug from this world, such a blessing. This world has trials and tribulations for us. Feast of Tabernacles, we look forward to just getting away from all that. And we do struggle the rest of the year in many ways, shapes, and forms. But the mercy that never fails, that's always uplifts me. I was glad that that song was sung last. Because I need that too. Very much so. You know, our own personal situation this year, it's been a hard year. It's been a hard year. But the mercy that never fails, it's always there. God does not abandon us. This is about faith. What helps keep us strong. Anybody know anybody or you yourselves affected by any of those hurricanes that just occurred? You do? How about what happened in Las Vegas just the other day? Anybody? No. My brother-in-law works at an accounting firm, and his workmate sits right beside him. He and his wife were at that concert. And they were under gunfire and had to scramble and try to find shelter and all that. When you hear that so close to home, it really rocks you. It really does. And these poor people in Texas and Florida, they had so much in their life. And so much has been taken away from them. Just like that. What can sustain people under times like that? What indeed? And people question and they wonder, why do these things go on? How can anybody believe in a God that allows this kind of stuff? And for people of faith, God's children too, these things happen. It could happen to us too. We are protected, we are. But the greatest protection for a Christian, a son and daughter of Christ, is in our grave. It is. That's, we've made it. So don't even fear that. Don't even fear that. And if you have any personal tragedies that go on in your life throughout the year, rely on your faith. Because the mercy will not fail you. It will not. I ask sometimes for people to pray for me for these types of things as well. And I know all of you need it as well. Again, people stumble. Even God's people stumble when life takes them and steers them this way or that way. You do. And people will ask questions, and sometimes faith will be challenged. Faith can be built up. It also could be beaten up. Chapter 13 of Luke, the disciples were talking with Jesus about what they saw or what they heard. So at the same time, there were present some who were telling him about the Galileans, whose blood Pilate had mingled with their sacrifices. These people just were slaughtered. Just like what happened in Vegas. People were slaughtered. And Jesus answered and said to them, "Do you suppose that these Galileans were sinners above all the Galileans? because they suffered such things? Was it because of their sins that these things happened to them? No, I tell you. But if you do not repent, you shall all likewise perish. Without repentance, we will all perish. And repentance requires faith. Without faith, it's impossible. Or those 18 in whom the tower in Siloam fell and killed them. Do you suppose that these were debtors above all men who dwelt in Jerusalem? No. Do you think just because people were gathering together in a concert at Sin City, that's what people like to call Las Vegas, that no. But if you do not repent, you will all likewise perish. Jesus never failed to take a situation, whatever it was, doesn't matter, and turn it into a teaching tool and point you away, because you get distracted by these things. I mean, that would be a very distracting thing. I mean, if they saw that, they witnessed this slaughter that Pilate did, that would shake you. I wouldn't want to see anybody slaughtered. And these poor people in Vegas, how would that, if you were there, how would that affect you? Jesus says these things are going to happen. Don't lose your faith. And realize that if you don't repent yourselves and stay true to God, you will all likewise perish. In the Bible study that's coming up in a few hours, we'll talk about apparently the trials of God's church, won't it? The judging of God's church right now. Ecclesiastes. I like Ecclesiastes. There's wisdom in there. It talks about things of this world. And in times when things go just crazy, you got to wonder. And there's wisdom in there as to what goes on. Ecclesiastes 8. I'm going to read this from the New Living Translation. I just like the narrative of the read of that. And beginning in verse 6. Yes, there is a time and a way for everything, even as people's troubles lie heavily upon them. Indeed, how can people avoid what they don't know is going to happen? You can't. You trust in God and you maintain your faith. None of us can hold back our spirit from departing. None of us has the power to prevent the day of our death. There is no escaping that obligation, that dark battle. And in the face of death, wickedness will certainly not rescue those who practice it. I have thought deeply about all that goes on here in the world, where people have the power to hurt each other. What a very poignant statement, considering what we've been talking about. I have seen wicked people buried with honor. How strange that they were the very ones who frequented the temple and are praised in the very city where they committed their crimes. When a crime is not punished, people feel it is safe to do wrong. Well, they can do it. It's all open for everybody. But even though a person sins 100 times and still lives a long time, I know that those who fear God will be better off. The wicked will live long, good lives. Well, they will too. For they do not fear God. Their days will never grow long like the evening shadows, though. They will have their time and then they will perish. And this is not all that is meaningless in this world. In this life, good people are often treated as though they were wicked, and wicked people are often treated as though they were good. This is so meaningless. So I recommend having fun. Because there is nothing better for people to do in this world than to eat and drink and enjoy life. And yes, God wants us to enjoy life. He does. He doesn't want us to suffer. But we will suffer sometimes, and it's for our own good. But He wants us to have a good life. That way they will experience some happiness along with all the hard work God gives them. Now, we experience a lot of happiness at the feast. There's a lot of good, a lot of fun here. Unplugging from this crazy world. Unplugging from this crazy world. In my search for wisdom, I tried to observe everything that goes on all across the earth. I discovered that it is ceaseless activity, day and night. This reminded me that no one can discover everything God has created in our world, no matter how hard they work at it. Not even the wisest people know everything, even if they say they do. Sometimes I thought I knew everything. Well, no. Too proud, sometimes. No. Humor is good. Humor is good. I want to continue just a little more on this one in verse or chapter 9. This too I carefully explored. Even though the actions of godly and wise people are in God's hands, no one knows whether or not God will show them favor in this life. We trust in God that He will look out for us, though. The same destiny ultimately awaits everyone, whether they are righteous or wicked, good or bad, ceremonially clean or unclean, religious or irreligious. Good people receive the same treatment as sinners, and people who take oaths are treated like people who don't. Seems so unfair, doesn't it? It seems so tragic that one fate comes to all. That is why people are not more careful to be good. What's the point? What's the point? If you don't have God, there is no point. Go and tear it up. That's what people in the world do. And you can understand that. So if you don't believe in God, or you don't have God, you don't trust in God, you got to make the most of the life that you have, right? So go for it. And that's what this world does. Instead, they choose their own mad course, which is what it is. It's a mad course. For they have no hope. They have no hope. It's all they have is this. We have some in our family that are atheists, and you know, tragedy struck the family, and death occurred, and messed them up. It messed them up because they had no hope. That person gone forever in their mind, never to be seen again. Dust, ashes. Took a long time for them to get over that, and in fact, they haven't. They won't even talk about it. You can't talk about the beloved person that passed, and that's a tragedy. That you can't have a conversation about the loved one that is no longer there anymore. They just can't handle it. There's nothing ahead but death anyway. There is hope only for the living. That's what they think. For as they say, it is better to be a live dog than a dead lion. So live it up now. The living at least know they will die, but the dead know nothing. They have no further reward, nor are they remembered. Whatever they did in their lifetime, loving, hating, envying, it's all long gone. They no longer have a part in anything here on earth. So go ahead, eat your food, drink your wine with a happy heart, for God approves of this. Well, yes, He wants you to have a good life. He does. Wear fine clothes with a dash of cologne. Live happily with the woman you love through all the meaningless days. A life God has given you in this world. The wife God gives you is your reward for all your earthly toil. Whatever you do, do well. For when you go to the grave, there will be no work or planning or knowledge or wisdom. It's all gone. I have observed something else in this world of ours. The fastest runner doesn't always win the race, and the strongest warrior doesn't always win the battle. The wise are often poor, and the skillful are not necessarily wealthy. And those who are educated don't always lead successful lives. It is all decided by chance, by being at the right place at the right time. People can never predict when hard times might come. Can't. We had a hard time come just recently, just boom, out of the blue. There's no warning about it. Just there it was. Like fish in a net or birds in a snare, people are often caught by sudden tragedy. Here's another bit of wisdom that has impressed me as I have watched the way of our world works. Observing how this world works. There was a small town with only a few people living in it, and a great king came with his army and besieged it. There was a poor wise man living there who knew how to save the town, and so it was rescued. But afterward, no one thought any more about him. Poor man anyway. What good is he? Then I realized that though wisdom is better than strength, those who are wise will be despised if they are poor. That's the way this world works. What they say will not be appreciated for long. Only when it's to benefit someone at that moment in time. And then, away with you. But even so, the quiet words of a wise person are better than the shouts of a foolish king. A wise person can overcome weapons of war, but one sinner can destroy much that is good. Wise words indeed. It's the way this world works. Ecclesiastes, those two chapters are there. That's how the world is. And we live in it. And there's nothing wrong with enjoying what life has to offer, but we can't be like the others who have no hope, no faith, and all they strive for is to accumulate and achieve. Because once that time's gone, what do you have? What do you have? Luke 12. Jesus spoke a parable in verse 16. He said, "The ground of a certain rich man brought forth abundantly. And he was reasoning within himself, saying, 'What shall I do? For I have nowhere to lay up my fruit. I got so much stuff. And I want more. I know I can get more. How can I do that? Then I will say to my soul,'" I said, "I will do this. I will tear down my granaries and build greater ones. And there I will lay up all my produce and all my good things. And I will say to my soul, 'Soul, you have done many good things and laid up for many years. Rest, eat, drink, and be merry.' I spent all my time amassing wealth, fame, fortune, prestige, whatever, but spent no time seeking God. God wasn't important. Fancy clothes, big houses, nice restaurants, whatever. Traveling all over the place, nice places. Those are the things that people in this world want, isn't it? What good are they when you're not here anymore? There's nothing wrong with enjoying that stuff again. I mean, that's what God wants us to enjoy if we're able to. But we can't be preoccupied by that. Because this is what God has to say to this foolish man. "This night your soul shall be required of you." You're going to die this night. "And to whom is going to benefit from all this stuff that you accumulated? You were so busy accumulating it all, you never actually got to enjoy it. Now someone else will benefit from all your labor. And what have you actually got in the end? Nothing. Because you haven't stored up anything in heaven for you. Nothing. So shall it be to the one who lays up treasure for himself and is not rich toward God. Being rich toward God. That is the only thing that matters in this life. The rest is just gravy, so to speak. It's the dressing. It's the nice things that we can have and enjoy. But you have to be rich toward God, otherwise you have nothing. Nothing. And when your health fails you, you realize it even more. You take for granted what you used to have. We only have so much time on this planet. Only so much time. How much time do we spend making ourselves rich for God? Matthew 6:19 again reiterates this point. Do not store up treasures for yourselves on earth, where moth and rust spoil and where thieves break through and steal. Store up treasures for yourselves in heaven, where neither moth nor rust spoils and where thieves do not break through nor steal. Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. That is what you will strive for. That will be what you strive for. Back to Luke 12 on that. Verse 22. He said to his disciples, because of this, I tell you, do not be anxious about your life, what you shall eat, nor about your body, what you shall put on. Life is more than food, and the body is more than clothing. That's instructions for us. Bad things are going to happen. But don't worry about that. Good things are going to happen too. Spend time toward God, rich toward God. Don't worry about accumulating these things and saying, well, how am I going to provide for this or that or whatever? God knows you need these things. Consider the ravens. They don't know. They don't sow or reap. They don't have a storehouse or granary. God feeds them. We are much better than these birds, aren't we? And which of you, if you take careful thought, has the power to add 1 cubit to his stature? We can't do anything like that. Therefore, if you have the power to not even do this, why are you anxious about the rest? Why do you get so bogged down in your life? This is a sermon for me. It's also a sermon for all of you. Right? It's funny how when you do a sermon, it's also for you too. It really is. Not just for, it's for everybody. Everybody goes through these things. Everybody is not a stranger to any of these things. We all go through our various whatever it is. And they're called trials. And we all have different ones. And the mercy that never fails is a very good song too, because it says, if your brother is having problems deep in sin, and just take your brother's hand, help him out of it. Consider the lilies, how they grow. They don't labor, they don't spin. I tell you, even Solomon, all his glory, was adorned like, not even Solomon, was adorned like one of these. God adorns the grass. Tomorrow it's cast into an oven. How much more shall he clothe you, O you of little faith? That's the key. How much faith do you have? That's the richness towards God, is the amount of faith that you have. Faith is a measurable thing. You can add to it. You can increase. On the other hand, you could also diminish it. How strong is your faith? How important is faith? Hebrews, the 11th chapter, in verse 6, just one verse. Says, now without faith it is impossible to please God. Impossible. You have to have it. You won't succeed without it. It is mandatory for the one who comes to God to believe that He exists and that He is a rewarder of those who diligently seek Him. Diligently means working really hard at it. Not just a hobby. Not just for an hour a week to cover the bases. But diligently, that means that's your prime drive. The rest is just gravy. Peter experienced this. In Matthew 14, there was a very interesting situation that occurred here. Let's see. Verse 22. Matthew 14. And immediately Jesus compelled his disciples to enter the ship and to go before him to the other side, while he dismissed the multitude. And after dismissing the multitude, he went up into the mountains apart to pray, which he often did. He prayed for long hours, and by himself too. He wanted to be by himself. And when evening came, he was there alone. His disciples were out in the water. They were crossing the sea, and he was just going to catch up with them. Well, how was he going to do that? Well, I'll just walk on the water. I don't need a ship. But the ship was now in the middle of the sea, being tossed by the waves, because the wind was contrary. It was pretty nasty out there. But he was just walking on the water in the middle of it. It didn't bother him. Got a little wet, I'm sure. But he didn't fear. No. Did he expect to see his disciples in the boat struggling? I don't know. Probably not. Maybe he assumed that they were already on the other side. And in the fourth watch of the night, it's pretty late at night. So they were out there for a long time, struggling. And probably fearing for their lives, I bet. Fearing for their lives. How much faith did they have? Number one, Jesus told them, go ahead, go to the other side. Which means he expected them to get there. Even if the waves were rocky, he expected them to get there, safe, all of them. But they were without him at this moment. And they were experiencing this rocky, wavy, windy, tumultuous storm on the sea, and they were fearing for their lives. Jesus went to them. He was walking on the sea. When the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were troubled and said, "Oh, it's an apparition." And they cried out in fear. Fear. Immediately Jesus spoke to them, saying, "Be of good courage. It is I. Don't be afraid." And Peter answered him and said, "Lord, if it is you, bid me to come out with you upon the waters." Would you have stepped off that boat under conditions like that? And Jesus said to him, "Come on. You can do it." And after climbing down from the ship, Peter walked upon the waters to go to Jesus. And he was actually doing it too. Peter was walking on that water. How did he do it? What allowed him to walk on that water like that? But something happened to him. He was overcome with fear. He saw how strong the wind was and the waves crashing around, and he became afraid. And his faith started to shake and waver and fail him. And when his faith left him like that, what happened to him? He started sinking. He was now becoming overwhelmed by the waters. He would have drowned. He would have died without faith. And he immediately cried out to Jesus, "Lord, save me." And Jesus stretched out his hand and took hold of him and said, "Oh, you of little faith, why did you doubt? You were walking on the water just fine. This little trivial thing, storm, shook your faith that much?" That's what the power of faith can do, because we undergo these stormy seas in our life. And it's faith that sustains us through it, keeps us going, keeps us walking, rather than being engulfed by the sea and dying. Faith is what does it. And faith is a measurable thing. You increase it by becoming rich toward God. We will have trials in this life. Do not fear them. They are necessary. James reminds us of that. Both James and Peter. We'll go to both. James, first chapter, you know this one. Consider it all joy. Be happy when you're beset by these things. We always joke about that one. You know, when you're in the middle of trials and struggles and things that seem to just overwhelm you, why is that a joy? It's a joy because you will be better for it afterwards. Because faith is a measurable thing. And it's by testing of your faith that it produces endurance. Endurance happens because you're exercising something. You're becoming more proficient at it. You're becoming more of an expert at it. It becomes easier. It actually becomes automatic. It was automatic for Jesus to do anything. He didn't have to worry about whether his Father would answer him about anything. He never once doubted anything. The only time he really struggled that I'm aware of is when it was the night he was to be taken and crucified. And he feared then for his physical life, because he didn't want to really undergo all that physical pain and torture. He knew what was going to happen to him, and he was afraid then. And he prayed hard. He prayed so hard that blood actually came from his sweat. And angels ministered to him. He was uplifted. He was strengthened. He knew what he had to do, and he did it. And he did it. He needed God's help. He needed God's help there, and he got it. In 1 Peter, the first chapter, we keep this in mind. Verse 5, we are being safeguarded by the power of God through faith, for salvation that is ready to be revealed in the last time. We are being safeguarded through faith. In this you yourselves greatly rejoice, though for the present, if it is necessary, you are in distress for a little while by various trials. Because it's necessary. Because that is what produces the endurance of your faith. If we didn't go through any struggles, there would be nothing to exercise our faith. There would be nothing to increase our faith. And in fact, if we didn't go through trials, our faith would diminish. Because if you don't exercise, you just become flabby, don't you? Couch potato. And you get and try and run a race and you fall flat on your face. you'll sink in the sea. That's why these trials are necessary. So don't fear them. And that's why James says, count it all joy. Because they're necessary to increase the one thing that makes you rich toward God, and that's your faith. In order that the proving of your faith, which is much more precious than gold that perishes, though it is being tested by fire, may be found unto praise and honor and glory at the revelation of Jesus Christ, whom not having seen you love, in whom though at the present time you do not see him, you believe and rejoice with unspeakable joy and filled with glory, and are receiving the end of your faith, even the salvation of your souls. In conclusion, 2 Peter 1, verse 10. For this reason, brethren, be even more diligent to make your calling and election sure. Because if you're doing these things, you will never fall at any time. You will never fall. You can walk on that water. For in this way you will be richly granted an entrance into the eternal kingdom of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Therefore, I will not neglect to make you always mindful of these things. Well, that's what I'm doing now. Although you already know them, I'm making you aware of them again now, just like Peter did, so that your faith can be strengthened more today. You already know them and have been established in the present truth, for I consider it my duty. Yeah, I do. If I'm standing here, it is my duty. It is my duty. If I'm up here talking to you, it's my duty. As long as I am in this tabernacle, this physical body. Tabernacle. Feast of Tabernacles. Isn't that a nice thing? To stir you up. That's what I'm trying to do. Stir you up. By causing you to remember all these things. Your faith is the most important thing, more precious than gold that you have. Nothing is more important than your faith. And it will be exercised. It will be tested. It will be tried with fire. Imagine standing in the middle of a fire. I remember Jim giving a sermon once about burning off all the chaff. It takes a while to do that. And fire purifies. Burns away all that's bad, and all of the things that shouldn't be part of us need to be burned away. And standing in a fire while it's raging, while that stuff is being burnt off, that hurts. Can you stand in that fire and do it? Or are you going to jump out of it? Because you can't endure it. I'm telling you, you can endure it. You can do it. You will do it. And you will be in this kingdom. God has promised you that. Never be discouraged.